Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our panel today. Day 2 of British Beauty Week, and I'm absolutely delighted to be hosting this panel for you all this morning. My name is Helena Gresk. I am the COO at the British Beauty Council, and today we're going to be talking a bit about diversity and inclusion in the hair and beauty sector. And I'm joined by an absolutely fantastic panel of guests this morning. So a few things we're going to touch on today will just be to really look about how and what barriers we've got within our sector and how we can start to remove these and look at the importance of degendering and making our sector more diverse and inclusive to all. So without much further ado from me, we are hosting our panel today with sponsored by Timely. We're joined by the very wonderful Mary Haddock Stanyland. So Mary, do you want to do a little introduction and tell us a little bit about what you do in your role at Timely?
Hi, Helena. Nice to join you from Auckland in New Zealand, the land of the long white cloud, to all of your guests who are tuning in to see this conversation. I'm Mary Haddock Stanyland. I'm the SVP of Culture and Inclusion at Timely. And we are a progressive, innovative company, software company at the bottom of the world, doing software for the hair and beauty industry. And obviously signaled by my role in the organization, take diversity, equity, and inclusion very seriously. And I look after all things people related with an amazing team who help me do that every day at Timely. And it is wonderful to sponsor this conversation and to join you and all your guests. So looking forward to the chat.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary. And we've got Rob Slapko with us today. Rob, do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Rob. I own a salon and barbers in Manchester, and we've sort of spent the past 9 years we've been open just trying to break down any psychological barriers, racial bias, gender bias that we possibly can do so that our business and company can be fully accessible for everyone. And there is so much more we can do, but we're pushing for every single day something else that we can then do to then become better with what we're doing. And then also sharing that knowledge with other people to then try and promote that change within all of the salons in the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. And Rob's also part of our hair committee as well, so we're doing some great work with us as part of the British Beauty Council too. Thanks, Rob. And Kerry Blue, over to you.
Hiya. I'm Kerry Blue. I'm a barber. I've been barbering for about 5 years. I'm currently in London, but I am relocating to Manchester very soon. And I started and founded Hair is No Gender. So being non-binary myself and getting refused cuts as a client and then being refused to use the pronouns as a barber is something very close to my heart. And what Hair is No Gender is what a lot of people might not know. It's basically an educational platform to help people like Rob and other barbershops and salons in making their shops more inclusive and more diverse, really, and just treating people as humans and not judging them on what they may appear to be. So yeah.
Incredible. You guys are amazing. And last but not least, we've got the lovely Sam Marshall. Sam, tell us about what you're doing to support this as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Marshall. I'm a beauty therapist. I still have a clinic that I run in Manchester. I'm also an educator in the industry. I helped to redo the National Occupational Standards recently with Habia, so I work alongside them. I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community in Manchester. I volunteer with the LGBT Foundation and I run a trans awareness course, which I've recently teamed up with the wonderful Kerry, because we kind of got hair and beauty covered then between us. I'm very, very passionate about inclusivity and making changes for the better within my industry. And yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really have got an absolute wealth of experience and it's going to be absolutely wonderful to have you all share your experiences and your insights with us today so we can see how we can really support moving the industry forward. So yeah, it's going to be a great conversation, I think. Looking forward to this one. As the British Beauty Council, we've been working a lot looking at different aspects of diversity and inclusion across a broad spectrum of areas, and the LGBT QIA plus as being one that we've been looking at more recently. And in our last series of town hall meetings that we've been doing, really looking at that as a topic, we noticed that the quite a recurring theme was the fact that the beauty and hair goods and services are very much still gendered. And that's not necessarily the situation across other sectors. You know, you don't go and get your apples and pears in a gendered way when you go to the supermarket. But for some reason, we still seem to have that very kind of clear gendering a lot within our sector. Why do you think that is? And what changes do you feel that we could make or start to make that change? And why do you think it's important that we do push to degender the goods and services that we have across our sector? So maybe Mary, I might come to you first on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge first and foremost that there are many dimensions that make up a diverse and inclusive workplace. And I think it's really important to keep that in check. While LGBTIQ plus folks are at the top of many pillars, and even in my area of expertise, obviously, you know, let's talk about normalizing and how to do that. I think is important. I think as long as we live in a society where you are thought as being brave or being courageous when you come out, or declare a gender that you identify against other than your biological one, there is still work to be done. And I think there's lots of barriers that organizations and salons and sectors, not just this one, that can build some weight around educating and encouraging a wealthy and healthy conversation around this. But I suppose here in New Zealand, it's that old adage saying, and I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing it is similar in your part of the world too, that folks say they don't know what they don't know. And I think in 2021, that is just a bit of an excuse that needs to be squashed. So the more we encourage and the more we empower a conversation to do with EDI, equity, diversity and inclusion, the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Kerry, you had a really interesting point when we were just discussing earlier before the call about, you know, the importance of degendering services that you provide, particularly thinking about hair services. Can you share a little bit with us about your experience with that and how you're trying to support people in dealing with that as well?
Yeah, sure. I think the hair and barbering industry is a great industry, and I love being a part of it. But I think being a non-binary person and working in an industry which is pretty much barbers are for men and hairdressers are for women, I've definitely struggled to fit in both aspects as a non-binary client trying to get a haircut. As I was saying to Rob in the practice run that we just had, you know, like, it's a struggle because I want to clip a cut on the side, but on the top I want a really textured layer scissor cut. So then do I go to two different establishments, or it's just, what I'm trying to do with Hair is No Gender is, as a barber now, take my experience as a client where I have been kind of discriminated and made to feel like I don't fit in anywhere and be judged, and make it less awkward and just try and bring out, you know, barbershops to be much more gender neutral. Instead of having men's haircut, just have haircut, go by length rather than the gender of someone. So, you know, length of hair, if it's short, it's a short haircut, long haircut, go by time, go by skill. There's so many other aspects to it rather than, you know, this is for men and this is for women. As you say, we don't shop in different places. And at home, we all have gender neutral toilets. So it's just about breaking the barriers down and trying to put yourself in the eyes or head of someone who is trans or is non-binary, and how do they feel on an everyday basis in that establishment when you open your doors. So yeah, that's that. With the education from Hair is No Gender, it's just really like you know, like you said, it's just about educating people. If they don't know but they're willing to learn, then that's a great start. That's a true ally in my eyes.
Yeah, no, really. And that's the thing, isn't it? I think the education is the key thing, isn't it? People really truly don't know what they don't know, and I think a lot of the time we have to start trying to push that education piece out there to really inform people and give people the tools that they need to be able to make the changes that they do need. A lot of people, it probably just completely skirts past them the fact that there's even a piece of work there that they need to be thinking about or looking to do within their business to make it more inclusive. Sam, obviously you come at this more from a beauty angle, and I guess the degendering of certain services in the beauty industry can be even more challenging. So what can you share with us a little bit about like how you've approached that from a beauty services perspective as well, because it's a really tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. So with beauty, we're not just touching someone's head, we're touching their whole body. So it's a lot more intimate. So certain things, obviously the obvious elephant in the room is intimate waxing. That is the thing that if you're not trained to do male genitalia, you can't do it, which is okay. And also I believe everyone should have a choice as to who they touch or don't touch. But everything else, for example, if we take waxing as an example, can be degendered. I had a good conversation yesterday in one of the forums and they said, well, women don't get back waxes. And I was like, my women do, why can't you? So I would encourage everyone to degender where possible. So unless it's intimate waxing, take the gender out. Manicure, you can have a manicure with polish, without polish. Some cisgendered women don't want polish on their manicure. It doesn't necessarily mean it's just for men. And the same with eyebrows. You could have a precision brow or you could have a tidy. They can be two separate things that we can take gender away from our treatment list for. The only other thing that comes up quite a lot is massage. And it can be for religious reasons or personal reasons. Some therapists don't want to massage a cisgendered man or a man. That could also in their eyes be a trans woman, unfortunately. So that is a conversation that I think needs to carry on happening as to guide new therapists, salon owners as to how to handle that and what to do in that situation. And the obvious thing for me would be if a therapist doesn't want to massage a guy, make sure they've got a therapist in their team that will massage men. It's okay to refer on to someone else, but I think everyone needs to take a really good look at their treatment list and think, do I actually need to have male manicure? Do I need to have ladies cut and blow dry? I know some delving into hair there, but do I need to have male massage? Do I need to have, all these different things? But then also we've got to think about people like Kerry that are non-binary. They've got to pick. They've got to go, oh, okay, so I haven't got a gender neutral brow shape. I can have ladies or gents. Which one shall I go for today? That's not okay, is it?
No, you know what, absolutely. I find these conversations so interesting. Every time we have one of these conversations, my mind blows into a million pieces, because there is just so many things that can be done that we've just not thought of. And it's crazy, isn't it? Like, as an ex-spa operator and beauty therapist myself, I've wrote probably tons of treatment menus and I'm guilty of doing this, like of actually writing a treatment tariff. It's male and female gendered, and now I'm engaged in these conversations. I think, God, like I was lacking in that education. I was the person that was having conversations about single sex changing rooms and whether we needed to have space that was inclusive, but we're still writing a treatment menu that was gendered.
Says men and women. So, the only thing, if I can add a point on that though, is when it comes to, I'll say men, I mean cisgendered men, but I'd call the Gura cavemen men that kind of don't really want beauty treatments. I find a lot of salon owners that are writing these menus feel like they need their own list, because it's kind of like, hey, this is for you. This gives you permission to have a back wax. This gives you permission to have a manicure, because it's in a men's section. It's not girly. So I think what we need to do is kind of, and this will happen over time, is to break down that impression that having a beauty treatment is a girly thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a girly thing. It's okay for guys to get manicures. I have loads of straight cisgendered men that have manicures, and that's okay. So I think that will come over time, whereas if we think back to our fathers and grandfathers' time, there's no way they had anything that wasn't gentlemen's. They wouldn't have stepped foot in a beauty salon. So I think it's education, but I think it's also time. I think as the generations come on, I'm sure my son, who's 10, won't blink about having a beauty treatment when he's older.
Yeah, I think that's why I was saying about barbershops being a traditional male place and hairdressers being traditionally female. And I think obviously mixing the both like Rob's doing is amazing. But it's about merging that and taking away old traditions, like black is black because someone said it's the colour black, yellow is yellow. But who's to say that is right or that is wrong? And until if you are living a, a straight cis white life, then you may not experience things that other people have, and vice versa. I may not experience discrimination in other ways. And I think it's just kind of about trying to really think about your whole services as a whole, and just taking an extra few minutes. But it doesn't mean if you haven't got gender neutral pricing at the moment, you're doing anything wrong. You're just following tradition. You're doing what is the norm. It just means if you're willing to change, that's a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rob, obviously you've been really championing pushing this forward and implementing these changes within your own business. Do you want to tell us a bit about how you've done that, or the challenges that maybe you faced in doing that, so other people can learn from your experiences too?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing you've got to think about when it comes to any situation like this is that it's what we've all been saying throughout this entire last 20 minutes. It's that you need the conversations, you need the education. Like, part of the way that you can have that is by having representation at the same time as well within said companies. For instance, like Kay was just talking then about how merging the two together, so you have salon and barbering services. So I'm extremely lucky because I've got 2 floors, so I can have a floor for barbering, a floor for salon, and then try and merge them together slowly but surely, so it's a gradual change. However, a lot of salons don't have that, but then something they do have is a chair. They can then hire in a barber chair, they can bring in a barber 1 day a week, and then just start provide services for and opening up their books for other clients that they wouldn't have necessarily been able to previously. And then when that stylist starts getting busier and busier, start opening up more days. And it's just creating more opportunities within companies. So like with me, for instance, like I say, I've been really lucky with that front because we had the space to do that. But that's where I'd suggest for like other salons to then work with is start bringing on the right people just 1 day a week and just start building up a business within that.
Yeah, I agree with Rob massively. And I think you hit a good point there, representation. If people walks past my shop window and I'm cutting hair and they can identify with me, then they're more than likely going to come in. So make sure your staff is diverse as well. And I think, use your social media wisely and, put up pictures, because a client will have a journey, and the journey will probably be, gender neutral barbershops or salons. And there's not a lot on there to Google. I've done it a lot, which is why I started a directory online. But they want to see something, that anyone wants to see something. They're like, I want that haircut, or I want that treatment, or reviews. So I can't speak enough about how important representation of your brand is. Like, definitely to get people in there, and for people like me to know that there is places I can go and I don't have to hide away in someone's house to get a haircut and feel less awkward or anxious.
Yeah. And Kerry, you did mention that you feel like obviously you've personally faced these barriers in the hair industry.
Yeah.
How, like, can you talk to us a bit about your experience and like why that kind of has pushed you to pursue this the way that you have done?
Yeah, sure. So it was quite a few years ago. I lived in Brighton for about 10 years, and I used to shave one side of my head. I had a bit of an emo look going on, but I didn't want to shave it myself. I wanted a fade. I wasn't trained as a barber then. So I went into a barber shop called, I think it definitely had a gender on the front of it, but I won't bring it out. And then they said,
don't name them.
No, I won't. I almost did. And I was like, no, what am I doing? And I waited for ages because it was back in the day when you could sit for your barber. And then when I got up to go, they just looked at me and was like, what do you want? And I was like, I just want to fade. And they were like, we can't cut girls' hair here. And I was like, why? And they said, because we're not insured, our boss will kill us, we can't do it, sorry. So not only did I wait, but I got really embarrassed because there was loads of other people there. And then they did suggest another barbershop down the road that may do it for me, and they did. But it just left me feeling horrible, and it really gave me a lot of dysphoria, and I didn't feel right. And so I just decided to become a barber, because I thought, I don't want, if that happened to me and I look like this, then how many other people is that happening to, and it's an embarrassing situation. So I reached out online through lockdown. I asked a lot of people if that's ever happened to them, and you'd be so surprised how many people that has happened to, male, female, trans, or non-binary. I've had it from every aspect, because there's a lot of my friends that want blow dries that may not look like the typical blow dry person, but they get told, well, we can't because we've got a female price list. And it's like, what? So yeah, that's kind of what gave me the passion to sort of eradicate that. I don't want anyone to feel how I felt, because it's really not a nice feeling.
No, that's amazing.
So,
yeah. Thanks. Open question to any of the others. Have any of you faced any barriers, you know, personally within the hair and beauty industry that have kind of led you along the paths that you've trodden on in terms of really championing this as a topic?
I haven't. I'm really privileged because I'm one of those gay women that looks like a straight woman. So I'm like a hidden one, apparently, which gives me this privilege. Apparently, I did a talk on Virgin Pride Radio about it. It was really interesting. But I see the barriers of my clients. You know, I have people going to me going, do you know anyone that would cut my hair? This is a trans woman. Like, shouldn't everyone cut your hair? You know, and I hear about, you know, they get asked questions, they get turned away. I'm talking mainly about the trans community here. And I see the pain in them, and that's what made me teach it to other people. So yeah, I've not experienced it myself, but I see it from other people.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that I have. I mean, New Zealand is kind of small in comparison to the UK, right? So it's tricky to compare. But I would say that over, you know, I won't give away my age, but you know, it hasn't always been easy. But it's probably led me to why I'm in the job I'm in today, because I know what it's like to be referred to as the other, and I know what it's like to not feel included, and I don't want that for anyone. So one of the first things I said to the CEO of Timely when we started talking about this role was that I don't want anyone in Timely to feel like they don't belong and that they're not heard and that they're not seen, because we all want to be validated. This call is going to end and we're all going to say to each other, oh my gosh, were we okay? Did it come across all right? I mean, that's it is self-fulfilling when we get that validation. And being trans in the role that I have and doing what I'm doing, I never think too much about that, but I realize that that comes with privilege, and that comes with a set of expectations and perceptions that both, not just in the hair and beauty industry, but in many sectors I've worked in over the years, I've been given opportunities. And I think, you know, we're so used to, trans in New Zealand or anywhere, I suppose, are used to getting knocked back. So when you get refused and when you get told, go away, you're not welcome here, that doesn't just hit you because you're like Kerry, you're in the queue at the barber. It just hits your wairua. So in Māori, that means spirit. It hits your core and it makes you feel like you're not heard and seen. And so for me, that is why I'm here doing what I do in my job every day, inch by inch, little by little, helping to change the dial. But I think by and large, interestingly, the hair and beauty industry have a lot of work to do. And the irony is how many LGBTIQ plus and dimensions of diversity sit and work in this sector. It surprised me hugely. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot that has been done, but there's still lots more to do. So amazing that people like Kerry and Sam and Rob exist in the UK to help do this very important work.
Yeah, we're definitely in a great position to continue having these conversations, and the more we can share and just get more and more people thinking about it and just having these beginning conversations and making one small change, like we can just really make a difference and really champion that change, can't we? I mean,
I think Mary.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think Mary hit a really good point there, because it is the hair and beauty industry. One thing I want to say before I forget, because I've got a bad memory, is that hair and beauty is so important to someone's identity. So for me to have a haircut that makes me feel how I feel inside as opposed to outside is massively important. So we're an industry that give people confidence regardless to what you identify as. So the fact that we're an industry that does that, and we refuse clients, some people refuse clients on how they're based or how they're dressed or how they look, it's insane, because the mental health side of it is, you know, it's incredibly strong. And I think we need to remember that we make people leave feeling great, feeling refreshed and feeling confident. And with that confidence, they could go on and meet the love of their life or get the job of their dreams. And I think it's imperative to make sure that as barbers, stylists or beauty people that we remember that as well. That's why it's so important for people, especially people, you know, any human, let alone people of the trans and non-binary community who are still trying to figure out their own identity as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's an absolute. I'm glad you did. It's a great point, and we supported on a report all about mental health and how the personal care sector could support with mental health and well-being, and even we had the Chancellor, the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak, open British Beauty Week on day one for us yesterday, and part of his opening speech was not only to talk about the value and contribution of the hair and beauty sector in that way, but also the fact that the pandemic has highlighted that we are services that are needed, and not only just because of the financial contribution to the UK, but also because of the contribution to self-esteem and to well-being. So these are all things that are so important, and leads me on actually really nicely into what I wanted to talk about next, really, was that representation within the hair and beauty industry, and that impact on emotional well-being of the LGBT community and other, you know, different groups of, you know, diverse, you know, other sectors as well. How do you feel that impact affects people, and what can we start to do to make that change? Because we're an industry generally of people who come into this because we're creative and we care and we want to make people look better and feel better every single day. That's why we generally do what we do. So, you know, what can we do to really make that change and support people with that emotional journey? We not have people come to a business within our sector or go to visit a brand or a store to purchase other, you know, the goods and products as well, not just the service side of things, to really prevent people from walking away and having that experience of feeling that way. Sam, Rob's coming in.
Hand up. Yeah, so I think the first point of that entire situation is just to actually admit that there's an issue. And there's a few things that I want to point out with this, because there was a Facebook Beyond Beauty Bias event that happened a couple of months back, and that showcased that only 7% of people actually feel represented in the advertising that they see. And that's 7%, which is such a small number, and it's so much smaller than what I actually thought it was going to be. And then fewer than 1% of ads had occurrences of an LGBTQ character. Yeah. And that's less than 1%, which is insanity. And the fact that there is such a trend right now for queer marketing, it kind of gives us an opportunity to then voice all of this and create these conversations and have that opportunity to do so because of that, because it's such a sort of money-making thing for big corporations right now, that it gives us the opportunity to go, look, we need the representation within there and to start these conversations. I mean, yeah, that's basically where it all starts. It's understanding that there's an issue to begin with, and then building from there, and then creating the conversations. But that's like my main thing that I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I'll jump in, because I was chatting to Kerry about this last night, and we were naming all the adverts that we absolutely love, and I probably can't name brands here. It's a very well-known cereal brand, and they are storming it with the representation. Then there's an oven chips brand who's doing very well, and there's also a car brand that did that gorgeous advert with that like a female gay couple on it. But we were trying to think if there's any beauty adverts or brand images or anything that, and I said to Kerry, I was like, what about like that one with the hair sticking up? And Kerry was like, nah, that's not me at all. So like all we see is kind of like normally, well, actually they tend to use a mix of different ethnicities now, but it's young, beautiful women. You know, you never see a trans woman on a beauty advert, do you? You never see someone that might be non-binary. So I think the representation in the advertising for the larger brands out there is horrendous for representation. And I'd love to see a bit more of that. And then when we do see someone, maybe for me, someone that's gay, or maybe someone, if we see someone that's trans or that might be non-binary, we're kind of like, oh my God, have you seen that? Like, it's massive news. Like, it should be an everyday thing, shouldn't it? But I think the big companies could have a go at doing it. And something I found that I always feel a bit let down on is things like Valentine's Day, weddings, it's always a man and a woman. But then it could even come down to things like Mother's Day, Father's Day. Where does a non-binary person sit in that? It needs to be opened up, and we need to accept that not our world isn't binary anymore.
I had a couple of years ago, my agent called me to say that there was a cereal company in the Asia Pacific, and were interested in having me front a campaign that was, basically it was in a 4-stage campaign, so social, digital assets, television, and radio. So we went through investigating what that would look like, because I've always kind of liked the idea of me being on the back of the bus. And when so through the various conversations I had with my agent, we went back to the company through the agency, the ad agency, and I've actually worked in advertising before, so I know exactly how it works. It was very tokenism, and it was very tick box, and they just wanted me because I was me. They wanted me because I was trans. They wanted me because I'm Māori, dark-skinned, and I declined what was a 6-figure deal. And I remember the New Zealand media getting wind of this and doing a horrific story about it, painting me out to be not... I was at the poor end. I was receiving the bad press about actually declining, but because I refused to comment about it, I let them make up their own conclusions. And I simply didn't do it because they weren't doing it because they wanted Mary. They wanted the trans version of me, and that doesn't define me. So it was that actually was a defining moment in my, what I would loosely say, my public career, that I basically said to my agent, if it's not anything to do with diversity and inclusion, I'm never probably going to do it again. And that's kind of 3 years on, that's what I've kept loyal and true to. But it's very important, I think, for brands to genuinely and authentically do this for the right reasons, to be having this conversation and representing the many minority groups that make up our beautiful culture and society in the right way. I will never do a tick box or tokenism approach, and I don't care. I mean, maybe if Beyonce called me and asked me to do that, would I do that? Probably would, but I would have to make sure that it's you got to do it for the right reasons, and it wasn't for me. So
yeah, no, that's a really important takeaway, I think, for brands, salons, and just media representation of the LGBT community as a whole. There's a lot of learning there, and like you said, Sam, it's great to see it, but it shouldn't be a celebration because it's so rare that you're like, woohoo. Like, it should become as just as that it's that whole piece around normalization, really, isn't it? That's where we need to get to. So do you think through the pandemic there's like more of a consciousness now around people being more susceptible to that? A lot of people, I know there's been a lot more conversation that I've certainly been having. Maybe it's because people have had their businesses closed, have been really kind of having that time to work on the businesses rather than in them, and they've been really kind of taking that wider view on what changes can they make now during the closure periods and re-looking at these kind of things. I've had a lot more conversations around not just this topic but other areas as well, but really looking at that. Do you think this whole piece around gender identity and the greater view of like normalization is becoming kind of a more conscious thing now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in if you want. I mean, yeah, however, while there's an abundance of love that's now happening more so, there's also an abundance of hate. And like, hate crime is on the rise now. In the UK specifically, I've seen it with my own eyes. But then I also think that, I mean, to kind of go back onto also what we were saying, because it all kind of is intersectional with everything that we're talking about. The work starts at home. You need to do the work by reading the right books, having the right conversations. And I know I keep on drilling on that, but a challenge that I'd like for anyone that's watching or listening to do, which is something that I found really interesting, is just look at your own Instagram feed. And whatever's coming up on your suggested is your algorithm. And it's like, how diverse is that for yourself? Do you have representation within your own Instagram feed of different voices that are challenging your own views, points, and your own ideas and your own morals? And I found that was something for myself that really truly helped, because I realized a couple of years ago that my entire Instagram was whitewashed. And I was like, why have I done this? Like, why have I subconsciously done this without even thinking? And then I made a conscious effort then to follow the right people and I'd be getting the correct information and the algorithm would be working in my favor rather than against me. And yeah, I definitely think that there is a lot more normalization from society than what there has been prior, but there is definitely a way amount for improvement. And that's the first thing. It always starts at home for me. I think that for myself personally, I did that on Instagram, which was just something quick and easy. And then it started then making me think, I want to start reading more books about it so that any actions that I would make would then not be tokenistic or not be performative. And then sort of breaking down my own fragility so that when I do have conversations about it and people do call me in or call me out, I can have a conversation and then change what I'm doing or have that conversation about it. So I think it's very much just opening yourself up personally a lot more to everything, and it's being done, but not to normalization. I don't like that word because
I know
I'm very much you normalize behavior, and normalized behavior doesn't make something normal.
No.
And there's so many therapists that have been like, I can't have you as my therapist because you're normalizing my behavior and this isn't normal for me. And so, yeah, I think it starts internally. You've got to fully look at yourself, because even a person who's doing the most amount that they can do to support different communities, there will still be more that they can do. So it's very much, yeah, it starts at home. And yeah, building on that. I know that I've kind of gone off on tangents there, but yeah, the stuff that I wanted to say. So for instance, with hairdressing, for instance, I'll just say one last thing. There's 35,000 hair salons in the UK, but there is only just over 300 that cater to Afro hair types. And it's like, that is something that hopefully by saying that then, like you were saying, Helena, at the start of this, there's moments where you're like, oh my God, that's insane. I've never thought about it. And if that's something that and people need to hear to then go, oh, racism is actually a problem within the hair industry, and that's something that we need to deal with within that. And I don't know what it's like for you, Sam, in the beauty industry, but it's definitely within the hair industry, something where we tend to, as a society, forget that queer people are more than just white people and white queer people. And it tends to be just forgot that there is a trans community, there is a Black queer community, there are so many different, as Mary was saying, dimensions of people within the LGBTQ community that aren't being represented even by the community themselves. So it's very much like, as much as it is being normalized, there is still a crazy amount of work that needs to be done, even by the people that are doing the work already. So that's where I stand with that.
Yeah. No, the race topic, that's really important as well. We've held town halls previously prior to doing these ones on race too, and we worked similarly as Sam did with Habib on the National Occupational Standards to look at having that introduction into the curriculum, to look at curly, coily and textured hair as something that all hairdressing students should be looking at as part of their education, where before it had been something that was kind of an optional set, or something that if the teacher was able to train could, and very, very difficult. I know definitely when I trained in beauty therapy, and colleagues who have trained in hair and makeup, it's always been the challenging thing. So it is great that we are starting to see, shocking that we're only starting to see it now, but great that we are starting to see these little changes moving forward. I think that's a really positive sign that the hair and beauty sector is open to being more inclusive and trying to kind of push forward with these barriers. So no, absolutely fantastic point. What more work do you think there is still to do there with that kind of shift in public consciousness, Sam?
Oh, it's just education. And I think it's kind of our age group and older as well, because the younger ones get it. They hang, someone in their class is trans, someone in their friend group is non-binary, they've got Black friends, they've got Asian friends. It's definitely my age group and above. And there's actually quite a well-known person in the nail industry that came to me and they were like, Sam, I need to know what to say and what not to say, because they have grown up kind of hearing this, hearing that. We shouldn't be using the word queer. Should we use the word queer? Can we use it now? And I think it's always going to evolve, but people just need to be open to education. They really do. I find sometimes when I talk about my trans awareness course, people are like, well, I don't need to do a course to know how to treat a trans person. You're like, you actually probably do, because you're probably, sorry, my light's gone off in my room. You probably are going to say the wrong thing, or you might ask the wrong question, or, you know, there's so many different things that people don't know. You don't know what you don't know. It keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? And recently someone actually said about the course, it is your duty to the LGBTQIA community to get educated about them, which it is. But it's the same with disability, with race.
Yeah.
Someone reached out to me actually that is doing a course on disability awareness, and I was like, brilliant, absolutely. Let's champion everything that we don't know about, and let's go and learn about it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
sorry. No, I was going to say, Sam makes a really valid point there. And I think it's important to just remember that these things happen all year round as well, you know, like not just for Pride Month.
God, yeah.
Because that's something that really like gets me a bit annoyed when everyone decides, oh, we'll let gay people come into the shop this month and we're going to do this. And it's like, well, do you represent that every single day? Do you represent everyone every single day? Again, it's like hiring people with still skill sets. Going back to learning, you know, how to do Afro hair, I had to do that after I learned to be a barber at a different barbershop. But I took myself to train to do that, because otherwise you're just closing your doors, and that's insane. So I think it's definitely a case of making sure that every day you continue learning. Even as barbers and stylists, we learn every single haircut every single day, no matter how long we've been doing it, you know. And every human we meet, we learn something more from. And think being non-binary is massive at the moment. I feel like there's like been non-binary models on the front of famous, like quite big magazines, and, you know, famous singers have been coming out. And I'm quite old. I'm like nearly 39, and I only came out as non-binary about a year and a half.
Can you not call yourself quite old when you're younger than me, please?
Sorry.
Same.
I feel old. Sorry. Yeah.
Kerry, please.
Sorry?
I said, can we delete Kerry now, please?
Oh, yeah. You guys. Drink Evian, I tell you, it's any water brand. But yeah, I think what I'm saying is, coming out at that age was difficult for even my parents to understand, and they were like, well, what is that? And I think people still don't understand. Clients ask me, they read my bio on my booking scheme, and they're like, well, what is non-binary? Are you a boy and a girl? Well, and it's like, whoa. So I think it's just going back to just ask questions, no matter how old or young you are, it doesn't matter. But if you're brought up in an era where I didn't even know that I was non-binary, but until someone used the pronouns they, them, I finally felt at ease with myself. And that's one of the main things I'll say about using pronouns and making them correct, is that makes someone feel like themselves massively. So, but that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? We could absolutely probably sit here and just continue this conversation for hours and hours, days and days, couldn't we really? There's so much to talk about because it's such a broad topic. But I've started recently using the pronouns since we've been hosting our town halls, and obviously I attended your training as well, Sam and Kerry, which was fantastic and a real eye-opener to me. So education is the thing, isn't it? And not one of us are above it or too far away from it or can know enough, and it's something that you can just keep repeating because it's easy to fall away and just forget one thing. So just reconnecting and continuing to learn, as Rob said, read and educate yourself is so important, isn't it? So yeah, fantastic. Probably like one last thing. Oh yeah, no,
add something on the pronouns, which I'm on my phone, which is why I haven't got them, but I'm she, her. But I've noticed Kerry's got 2 lots, so they took like the other set of mine. Oh. But what happened, no, it's really cool because now when you go on Zoom, it actually gives you the option of adding your pronouns afterwards, which is phenomenal. And then also on your email site signature as well, add your pronouns on there. You might think, God, it's obvious. My name's Claire. I know I'm going to be she, her. Everyone's going to know. But the thing is, for someone that's either part of the LGBTQIA community or someone that's well, that includes people that are trans and non-binary, for them to see you making that effort could make their day.
Yeah, makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and wasn't it proven, Kerry, that just by using someone's correct pronouns reduce their rate of
suicide rate?
Suicide, yeah.
It can massively affect someone's mental health. If someone uses the right pronouns, you know, you're misgendering someone, and that's offensive. And yeah, I mean, you know, just look at, like Sam said, like where you can put your pronouns in. And obviously I know a lot of people probably think, but at consultations you don't use pronouns. Get your booking systems, check them, do they have pronouns in there? It will help you from the start of the journey onwards. So
yeah, often you can add it as an extra field. I'm sure Mary will tell us what they do with Timely on this one.
I'm just about to tell you that. Quite right, Sam, because before I came on this call, I was talking to our SVP of product, and Timely we are days, now that I've said it on a live stream, that's absolutely going to happen. We are days away from releasing pronouns into the Timely software. We'll be making a huge song and dance about it. It's important. It's who we are. And I think it also helps gravitate towards a wider, bigger conversation that we all know needs to happen. It's around dialing down defensiveness and dialing up curiosity. And the sooner we get on that bus, the better. It's better today than it was last year. It's better now than it was 10 years ago. We've progressed a lot. We've still got shitloads to do. And I think if every single person listening, watching, that we know did something in diversity and inclusion in everyday life, it still wouldn't be enough. You know, there's so much to digest. There's so much to understand. Sam, you mentioned another acronym in LGBTIQ+. I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell is she talking about? I didn't know that you added we're adding a letter. You know, and that's good for me. I need to learn, and we all need to be educated and encouraged. I mean, none of us we don't know everything. So,
I think that the letters change constantly. I think the current one that we like to use is LGBTQ+, but the
right.
I is, I think, for intersex, and A is for all, or asexual it might be. Kerry probably knows way better than me on that one.
Yeah, it's asexual.
Love
Thanks. It. But also, quick one on the pronouns, sorry, is don't ask for preferred pronouns, ask for pronouns, because it isn't what you prefer to use, it's what you use. It's like, what's your preferred name? It's Sam. Well, isn't that actually your name? And then very quickly on the titles, the one for non-binary is MX, which is pronounced mix. So that is what Kerry uses as their title when they're, I don't know, phoning up the DVLA or something like that. You still haven't got it.
It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? I mean, this is so interesting. Like I said, it blows my mind every time we have these conversations. I love it. And there's so much to take away. It's wonderful that we've got fabulous people in the industry, like all of you, really championing this topic. It's just incredible. One little thing I wanted to touch on before, I'm just going to press you off for a quick kind of 2-minute speed round wrap up, and we'll see if we've got some time for any Q&A before we wrap up. But just thinking about this inclusivity and representation, it's not only important we're looking at it from a consumer perspective, is it, but really important for the hair and beauty sector as a whole, and from a recruitment perspective. What can we do as an industry and as brand owners and salon owners and people, you know, associations and organizations like the British Beauty Council, what can we all be doing to really focus and support the industry to be recruiting a diverse team into the workplace?
I think sorry.
No, go. You go.
Oh, Mary.
Okay. I think in terms of the LGBTIQ plus community, there is good representation in the hair and beauty industry, right? I said that earlier, which is great, but we need to consider that diversity is broader than that. And, you know, let's consider age. People with impairments, Sam, you mentioned that before about disability, straight men, I know that they are still a dimension, but we need to recruit where these people are and sell them on a career in the industry. And I think people we recruit into the industry should mirror the community we serve. We've talked about this already, and that means a little bit of everything, right? And this analogy I've been using inside the four walls of Timely the last couple of weeks is that every single person that works at Timely is, we all bake a cake every day, and it's a cake that every single person that works at Timely and who is part of our community loves to eat this cake. And we all contribute with our ingredients to the mixture of making this cake. It's a delicious, divine, very unhealthy, but good cake. And I think, you know, we know that when we do diversity and inclusion well, we do well because of it. It's that simple, but actually it isn't that simple. And I think if you're a salon owner, no matter where you begin on the D&I journey, to understand what good looks like in your environment is, you know, it's long and it's hard. It's not bloody easy. It's constantly changing. And, you know, if you're hiring folks and you're the salon owner, engage with your staff to ask whether you're making the right decision. You know, think about bringing in other people into the process. If you're, you know, wanting to do some initiatives around pride or any of the other activities that exist in initiatives, get involved with that in your salon, and ensure that, you know, it's an accepting place. I think, Kerry, you mentioned this. You wouldn't go into a salon if you can't see someone in there that you register as or with.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is providing an opportunity where people can undertake personal activities when they're in your salon. Like, you know, if you're doing things with when you're having a baby, what is it called?
Breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding. Yes, that's it. Breastfeeding. Or you're Muslim and you've got a staff member that needs some space to pray. And God forbid I mention, you know, endorsing unisex bathrooms. I mean, it is 2021, right? So we can do that. I think beyond this, it's about bringing these minorities to the decision-making table, listening and improving how we deliver to customers and also to our staff. Yeah, probably went on a bit too long there, but that's my answer to that.
I kind of want to add on to that as well, if that's all right, because I think that I like fully agree with what Mary's saying. And I know, like with myself, like as a business owner, I was a bit like, oh, I don't know how to source the right people for the right jobs. So like the thing that I'd say with that as well is stepping out of your own comfort zone and basically including yourself in the communities that you're wanting to include for your business and your communities and all the rest of it. So like, for instance, with us, we wanted to diversify our workforce. So one of the things that we started doing was speaking with youth centres so that we can then start having conversations with the age range that are going to the youth centres and the certain people that are going to there, so I can have those conversations with them and recruit from that side of things rather than just putting out an ad and then going, oh yeah, I can't positively discriminate and I can't do it. And stop the excuses, include yourself within the community, go to the right places, be part of the community that you're trying to embrace, and then that community will embrace you as well. And it's 100% from doing that, then you will authentically bring in the right people for the right positions within the companies that you work in.
Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Can I just touch one last thing? If you have got a business and it's a big high street brand or something like that, even have a little think about maybe how many people that work for you. Do you really know if they even are non-binary or trans? Do you sit down with your staff? Do you talk to them? It depends on how big your business is, obviously, but that person might feel that they can't tell you their pronouns. So it's also a case of maybe having a meeting, a one-to-one, and then embracing the staff you have got and educating them and getting people in like me and Sam if you need to train and keep learning, keep coming onto these panelists, keep being an ally, and in any sector, you know, in the disability, race, everything. But that's something from just like a non-binary or trans point of view. I will say, look at who you've got there now, because I've hid my identity for a long time and people shouldn't have to do that. So, yeah.
Right. And for anyone who's not been on Sam and Kerry's trans awareness training, I advocate, please go and do that, because you'll hear lots more about this topic and it will educate you all around what cis is and all about pronouns, why they're important, and exactly how you can look at degendering your services, and also looking about, you know, the workplace and all those aspects as well. So if you're a business owner or a therapist who wants to learn more, you know, go and have a look at that and really kind of look at how you, as we've said so many times through this session, education. So go and learn from the people who can really explain this in a way that you can go back and take that back to your organizations as well. Sam, did you want to say something?
Just one thing I would love more than anything, and this is for Kerry, not me, is for some of the major hair brands out there to take gender off their list. It's like they're the biggest ones on the high street, but they've still got ladies and men on there, and I genuinely don't understand why they do it. I know people that work at them and they don't understand why they do it, and it frustrates them as well. So if you are a big brand, just like think, right, could I be that first big brand to take that step to degender the list? Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Well, I was going to say, for 30-second quick wrap up, who do you see as a real trailblazer in the sector and who is inspiring you right now? And what would your takeaway to the audience be? So I guess, Sam, you've just done B. So hit me with A and then we'll switch to Mary.
It's cliche, but my trailblazer is Kerry, because I saw their talk with Modern Barber and I was like, wow, this person's amazing. And so that's how we met, and that's how we formed a business. Who inspires me? Do you know one person that always spits in my head that inspires me is Marion Newman, because she's making changes in her industry. She's so damn nice as well. Like, she doesn't do it in a mean way. She's just so lovely. So I think Marion is someone that definitely inspires me. So yeah, and I've done 3.
Thank you, Mary. Over to you.
Who inspires me? Look, honestly, I would say anyone who wants to, this is so corny, I know, but anyone, because if I say a name, none of you will know who I'm talking about because I'm in New Zealand, you're all up there in the UK. Anyone who wants to do this work, or even if they don't want to, if they don't have the answers to this, they ask a lot of questions and they're curious. And, you know, what I want for all of us is just to be in a world where the other is not actually, you know, seen as an odd thing, that people learn that being in an equitable and inclusive environment leads to success and people who feel like they belong.
Thank you, Mary. Kerry?
Well, yeah, that's corny too, because obviously reaching out and working with Sam, she massively inspired me to push Hair Is No Gender into other areas as well. And I think the biggest inspiration for me was when I reached out and did a survey about who else this has affected, and all these people came forward. And now I get people that find me from all over London just to come and feel comfortable to get a haircut with me. Every single time someone messages me and says thank you, even an ally, that inspires me to keep going and keep doing the work. But me and Sam have often said we shouldn't be teaching a trans awareness course. What are we doing? Like, this shouldn't be a thing. Hopefully in 10 years' time or in a year's time, it's not. Unfortunately, right now, it is an issue. It is a thing. And if we don't start making these steps, we're never going to change. And yeah, like I want everything to be human first. And I think that's the main part of why I'm inspired to keep doing what I'm doing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kerry. And Rob, over to you.
For me, the main inspiration that I have is from a friend of mine. They have a dance studio in London called At Your Beat, and they are fully based on inclusion and diversity within the fitness industry. And it's something that really opened up my eyes, and then I could relate back into the salon life, because I just didn't realize how they have very similar issues to us. So like with their dance studio, they have everything from Latin beat to Afro beat to bashment beat to any style of dance that you can think of, and they have the right people working there, they have the right community, and it's such an amazing experience when you're visiting and joining for the classes, because you feel supported, whoever you are going into those classes. And it was then internally then feeling inspired from that and wanting to replicate that same feeling through everything that I was doing. So At Your Beat, that's the one that I'd say would be like a massive trailblazer that I feel really inspired by.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, so much. We are out of time. It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you all so much for coming and sharing, and for all the work that you're doing to champion on this topic. It's absolutely incredible. This recording will be available after British Beauty Week on the British Beauty Council website. So if you want to re-listen to some of the wonderful things you've heard today and some of the top tips that you can utilise in your business, then please do come back and record it. Hit up the link, share it on your social media channels, share it with colleagues, inspire and educate other people to come and take these steps and engage in this conversation, because it's so important that we continue to have these kind of discussions and just keep spreading that message and making sure that this is something that we are all making a huge focus from now on. Thank you so much. We are having an absolutely wonderful British Beauty Week, day 2 for us today, and we're absolutely thrilled that you're all able to join us. Thank you to everyone for joining the session. We hope you have found it as interesting as we have, and that you'll be joining us for other sessions throughout the week. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Timely for supporting us.
Thank you, Timely. Thank you.
New Zealand. We're loving the Timely mug. Thank you, everyone, so much, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.